12-year-old boys have been arrested on suspicion of murder after a 19-year-old was stabbed to death in Wolverhampton.
Every day, wake up, you cry, you go to the bathroom. The time you wake up doing anything, my mind on him.
They kill my son like they killing a dog or something, you know? It's brutal.
I couldn't believe that the machete, they killed my son with a long machete like that. I couldn't believe. My skin just, get cold when I see that machete.
I think about the circumstances that led to two 12-year-olds mooching round a park with a knife nearly as long as their legs. Then, yeah, I feel sad about it. I think, what's gone wrong.
Well, the two boys, who cannot be named, are believed to be the youngest people convicted of murder since James Bulger's killers were detained in 1993.
He died innocent, and I lost my son.
Shawn Seesahai was born on the island of Anguilla. It's a British overseas territory in the Caribbean which has a population of just over 15,000. The biggest industry is tourism, but while visitors are often wealthy, the people who live there aren't.
Go ahead, paint everything white, the corner.
His father Suresh works in construction. His mother Manaswari is a housekeeper at some of the many luxury villas. Shawn was born in 2004.
He make us keep laughing, enjoy him. From that day he born, we were so joyful, have a first baby in our life. We're so happy that now we became a family, But Shawn was really wonderful growing up.
As a little baby, it was the best thing for me to know that I have a son as my first child. And we always happy about him. It was gorgeous. Just playful, laughing, always be happy.
So after when he started to grow now, he started to talk, he see the plane. And he said, Mommy, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a pilot. And he keep, talking, but after then he changed. After then he say he want to be an engineer.
He was always in sports. He always play basketball. He always play cricket, so he always be, physical. He always work with me on weekend. And he decided to want to be an engineer. He said, Daddy, I like the work you do. I want to be an engineer. I want to be an architect. I want to help you out because I build house on foundation. He said, we could work as a team that I draw the plan, you read the plan, you build the house.
The family live in Anguilla's capital, the Valley, which has a population of less than 4,000, about the size of a British village. Shawn loved playing basketball. This was one of the many courts he played on.
Shawn was a lovely boy. Initially when I met him, he was very quiet. And then as we got to know each other, he came out more. And he liked to joke around a lot. He was like the jokester on the teams. Basketball was a good escape for Shawn. That was his happy place. He liked to be on the court.
He started out being a very timid player, not because he couldn't play, but I think being a shy person, he was afraid to really express himself on the court. But as he grew in confidence, he showed what he can really do on the court.
But it was a basketball injury that set in train a sequence of events that would ultimately have tragic consequences.
He always say, his eye paining him, his eye paining him. I say, how your eye paining? He said, I had hit when I was playing basketball.
He'd suffered a very serious injury, a detached retina, and travelled to the United States for surgery. But his visa ran out, so in 2023 he came to the UK for further treatment.
I think when he left here and he was in the UK, his plan was to make the most of it, like to take advantage of the opportunities.
At that time, he was living in Birmingham. I went there, spent the 3 months with him and make sure the surgery done and everything done, and then I came back.
Things were looking up. His eye problems were almost behind him, and he hoped to stay in the UK to study engineering. On November the 13th, 2023, Shawn and his childhood friend Darren Harrigan travelled from Handsworth in Birmingham to meet some other friends in Wolverhampton. It was there that a chance encounter would cost him his life. Their movements were filmed on CCTV, first travelling by tram, then walking to the Stow Lawn playing fields. They stopped at a nearby shop to buy some drinks. This was the last image of Shawn alive. They returned to the park and walked past a bench where 2 young boys and 2 young girls were sitting. There was an altercation. It's not known what caused it, but it was more than likely over something trivial. One of the boys produced a large machete. As Darren and Shawn tried to escape, Shawn fell and was repeatedly stabbed by the 2 boys. He died where he fell.
I was the on-call homicide senior investigating officer on the 13th of November last year. I received a call telling me that a young lad had been stabbed in Wolverhampton and that he'd unfortunately passed away. When I got there, I learnt that the young man who had died was called Shawn Seesahai. I also learnt that friends of Shawn had rang his parents back in Anguilla, and they were actually on the phone to them there at that time saying Shawn's been killed.
I left shock. After I hear that call and they say Shawn gets stabbed, I don't know what happened after. I think maybe I threw the phone down. I can't remember what happened. I left in shock.
She said, "What? Shawn gets stabbed?" She started to say, "Shawn gets stabbed?" And she started to cry. So I took the phone from her and I asked the guy, I said, "What happened?" He said, "Shawn passed away." I said, "You sure that Shawn passed away?" He said, "Yes."
Well, I dropped. I just dropped. I couldn't believe it. And when my husband said Shawn passed away, Shawn dead, I don't know what happened after.
I had my sister and the next sister was here visiting us from Antigua. And they all started to cry.
I want to know what happened to my son, why that happened. And then someone just come and take his life away, just like that.
Within minutes, news was spreading across Anguilla. So many people knew Shawn and his family.
I was in disbelief at first. I brushed it off like nonsense. And then when I realized there was some truth about it and it sank in, I said, "Oh, wow." And I couldn't believe it. It was very saddening. It was very saddening for the family and for the neighbors, we from the same apartment, and the community that he resided in.
I drove straight to the parents' house, and seeing everybody there, then I knew it was true. But it's just sad because he never had that opportunity to fulfill or live to his full potential. With all the obstacles he had, this was his time.
You know, when you get this shocking news from about someone you know, it takes a while to register and you're going through all the different emotions. You're like, but he's in the UK, he's trying to make a better life, he's trying to progress. It's a myriad of emotions that just went through me when I heard the news about Shawn.
In Anguilla, we say, you know, the devil's working overtime. We just wonder what's going on. What's really happening to our youth? Why is it happening? I want to know the why.
My team had hit the ground running. We were doing the solid building blocks of an investigation, following up on CCTV, following up on witness accounts, house to house. The first priority of my investigation was to identify the suspects.
CCTV coverage of the park was poor, so although police quickly retrieved this footage, it's impossible to see exactly what happened. Investigations continued, and a breakthrough came when a parent called the police to say their daughter had important information and would like to talk.
We were given some details in relation to one, that that an assault had been witnessed, that a knife had been used, and that there were two young men, boys, who had been responsible and involved in that attack. What my officers and the intelligence was telling us is that these two boys were 12 years old, and that obviously was a point at which you could look at the investigation and think, well, it's changed now a little. This is something that is new.
What did you think when you heard that they were 12 years old?
I've investigated murders and homicide and major incidents for a long time, but it was a surprise.
A 12-year child to get a weapon like that, they ain't supposed to hold something like that. Just 12 years old, I left shocked when I see them too, and when I heard that. I couldn't believe. Nobody deserved to die like that.
As they went to see the 12-year-olds, officers very quickly made an important discovery.
I was told that we'd recovered a blood-stained machete, large machete-style knife, and a sheath from under the bed of one of the suspects.
In the meantime, the eyewitnesses, that's Darren Harrigan and the two girls, had given statements which gave investigators a picture of what had happened. Their versions of events differed slightly, but they agreed that there'd been some kind of confrontation.
Words were had which escalated into an argument, and then as they argued, one of the suspects pulled out a knife, and the confrontation had turned physical. And whilst Darom and Shawn both tried to run away, upon seeing the knife, Shawn was caught and he was stabbed, and he was left there to die on the playing field. We conducted a forensic post-mortem of Shawn after he died, and we found that he had multiple stab wounds across his body. Significantly, he had a large stab wound to the back of his skull that had actually cut into the bone and left a burr. He also had in his back a 23 centimetre deep stab wound which went through his chest and pierced his heart.
The 12-year-olds were both arrested and charged with Shawn's murder. On the morning of November the 17th, they appeared at Birmingham Magistrates Court. Because of their ages, they can't be identified. Their families crowded into the public gallery as both boys, looking tiny in the court setting, confirmed their names and addresses and were remanded in custody. Soon after, they found more evidence.
We recovered phone handsets from both suspects, and they were of the suspect posing with the knife that we'd later recovered, and we could date them as being in the early hours of the morning of the offence, so i.e. he would have posed with those photos, gone to bed, had his day, and then later gone out and been involved in the fight where he killed Shawn.
More crucial information was gleaned from the phones. There was a Snapchat conversation between the boys and the girls who'd been there, which began the morning after Shawn was killed. It started with a video of the park taken the previous evening, along with the message, "Someone got stabbed." Then one of the groups said, "We know." An hour later there were more messages, everyone's talking about it, then literally everyone, at which point the boy who owned the machete left a voice note saying, "It is what it is." His friend replied, "I'm scared, man," to which the boy responded, "I'm not," and added IDRC, which means I don't really care. Next came a voice message from the boy who'd said he was scared. Part of it was inaudible, but he could be heard saying, "I ain't said now because every time I talk about it, like I act weird apparently."
When you, again, layered all that evidence together, you could have some confidence that the person using that phone, which we would say was the suspect, had some knowledge of what had gone on.
It was 12 days before the Seesahais could make it to the UK, but when they arrived, they went to Stow Lawn and held a candlelit vigil for Shawn. The boys went on trial at Nottingham Crown Court. Because of their ages, special arrangements were put in place.
It is about making sure that it's a sound conviction, that the defendants have no choice but to accept that they've been treated fairly, given every opportunity, and the evidence still stands.
It took place in one of the smallest courtrooms at Nottingham to make it less intimidating for the boys. The judge, barristers and court staff didn't wear robes or wigs, and the defendants sat in the well of the court, not the dock. Alongside them were specially trained staff who could help explain what was going on, and each boy had a family member beside them for emotional support.
So the conclusion that the jury reach, guilty or not guilty, is sound and beyond reproach, and there's no risk that you end up having to have a retrial.
Suresh and Manaswari travelled to the UK for the trial and sat in court behind the defendants.
I understand the court is small, but at least should put us in front. We come from all the way in the Caribbean, and then we go sit at the back of the court. I don't like it.
Imagine the situation where you're having to come halfway across the world to an unfamiliar place, to an unfamiliar justice system, to talk about the most horrific thing that's happened to one of the most important people, if not the most important person in your life.
As the trial opened, Michelle Healy KC for the prosecution showed the murder weapon to jurors. It was 42.5 centimetres long, that's nearly 17 inches.
I couldn't believe that the machete, they killed my son with a long machete like that. I couldn't believe. My skin just, get cold when I see that machete. That 12-year, have that long machete like that and just use it in somebody so brutal.
If someone stab you with that, you really have to be very lucky to survive.
During the trial, the 12-year-olds blamed each other, each describing how an apparently trivial shoulder barge had provoked the attack. The jury began its deliberations on Wednesday, June the 5th. The following Monday, a note was sent to the judge to say they'd reached unanimous verdicts.
We have just heard that two 12-year-old boys have been found guilty of the murder of 19-year-old Shawn Seesahai.
Well, the two boys, who cannot be named, are believed to be the youngest people convicted of murder since James Bulger's killers were detained in 1993.
I was very, very nervous. But when they come out and they say guilty, I was so happy. I was so happy. I know I can't see Shawn again, but at least we get some kind, they find them guilty.
I knew in my heart of hearts that the two defendants sat in that dock were responsible for murdering Shawn, and I wanted to see them face justice for that. Shawn's family will always stand out to me as a particularly dignified and resolute set of people, and so I really, for them, wanted to see justice done. I wanted them to have the confidence that even though their son was in a country halfway around the world, that we cared, that someone would secure justice for him, someone would go to bat for him, in simple terms.
The Seesahai spent so much of their savings on coming to the UK for the trial that they couldn't afford to come back for sentencing and have received no financial help.
I think that the government is supposed to contribute, because my son didn't do nothing. He died innocent, and all what we work for go down the drain. Plus we lose a lot of work.
And you lost your son.
And I lost my son. And it's not something easy to lose. I don't care much about the money, but what I lost, I can't get back.
Because they couldn't be there, the Seesahai's victim statement was read out in court by the Anguillan government's representative in the UK, Dorothea Hodge. In it, they said, "It has left a huge hole in the pit of our stomachs, which nothing can fill. We're devastated as a family, totally heartbroken." They went on to describe the close bond Shawn had had with his younger sister Shana and the impact his death had had on her mental health. "The impact on us as a family is devastating. It's hard to believe that we will ever come to terms with what has happened. We will never get to see Shawn get married or have a family of his own. All of these things have been taken from us, for what appears to be no reason at all." The next day, the boys, who were both now 13, returned to court to be given their sentences. We learned the first had been groomed and trafficked and led into criminality, while the other was regarded as more mature with a greater understanding of what happened.
Murder is the most serious criminal offence, and the sentence is fixed by law. There is only one sentence I can give the defendants in this case, and because of their age, it is called detention during His Majesty's pleasure.
They were told they could be released after serving 8.5 years in custody. However, they will remain on licence for life. The Seesahais believed that the sentence was too lenient and didn't reflect the severity of the crime.
I know it eating my husband inside. Every single day he always say, you know, it's so hard he can't see his son again. But I just want good justice for my child. I really want good justice for my son. I just hope and pray that we get good justice for him.
3 days before the boys were sentenced, new legislation came into effect banning the sale of weapons of the type used to kill Shawn. Tens of thousands of weapons were also handed in during an amnesty.
The impact of knife crime is devastating, no matter where you live in the country. This is an issue that affects us all. Shawn was only 19 when his life was taken at the hands of two boys, then aged just 12, who had armed themselves with a machete. That reality has had a huge impact on us all. It is both shocking and saddening.
Well, the knife crime is really high. And they have to stop it.
Back in Anguilla, Shawn's death has had a huge impact on a close-knit community.
There's so many victims and so many people hurting. I mean, we have an island hurting. There's the whole, nearly everybody, he lived in the valley. Everybody in the valley, all the youth, they're very upset.
Being in such a small island, you hear a lot of stories before you actually hear the truth. And that makes it even shocking because you're trying to now understand, okay, how do a 12-year-old have these weapons? What would provoke a 12-year-old to, take a life?
We did not only lose Shawn, but we also lost the two young boys who had a whole future in front of them, and that was what it came to. And Shawn had lost his life, and these youngsters also lost their lives. So their parents, I believe, would also be in some sort of mourning, just as Shawn's parents were.
3 months after the boys had been told they must spend at least 8.5 years in custody, the Court of Appeal ruled that the sentence had been unduly lenient and increased that minimum term to 10 years each. The Seesahai family said they felt that it better reflected the gravity of the case and would send a stronger and clearer message that carrying weapons would not be tolerated. Shawn's mother often returns to his favourite beach, where they shared many happy memories, and where, after his body had been repatriated and cremated, they scattered his ashes.
It's so hard right now. I can't even explain it, but it's very hard now. It brings back all memory from the day he died and everything I did, and bring his ash and lose it. It's so hard. There's only one son I have, and that pain is very, very hard. I only have one, not anymore, just him alone. Every day, wake up, you cry, you go to the bathroom. The time you wake up doing anything, my mind on him. Anyway. And then come today now and come back and see where I lose his ash, make it even worse.